Hello everyone. Good morning. I hope you all are doing great. So today again I am back with one another very important project which is related to removing the permissions or removing a user who has already left the organization. So what exactly this project is going to understand or help you? This Python script will automate the management of repository permissions within a GitHub organization. What exactly it will do? It will remove, first it will retrieve all the list of repositories. Second, it will list all the collaborators and retrieve the list of collaborators. And you can know that, okay, who all are the people who has the permission to view my repository or view my any of the code. And now, suppose there is a user, maybe Sandy. That person has left your company. Obviously, for the security reason, you have to delete that account immediately. But suppose you have 200 repositories. Now, deleting that particular user into 200 repositories manually can cost you many hours, and it can even cost you some mistakes. So how exactly we can handle this through Python code? And this code can be integrated your Jenkins pipeline also. So whenever a user exits the organization or exit it, they leave the organization, just go pass the username in the Jenkins pipeline and just click on the button. It will connect to all the repository. It will list all the collaborators and it will match particular collaborator name who has left the organization, and then it will delete it. So you can well understand the importance of this Python script. Now, instead of delaying a single minute, let us understand our code line by line. First thing, in the previous Python project also I have explained, you have to use the import module to import any of the library. So there is a library called request that I am importing using import keyword, and this request library can help us to interact to our GitHub and get all the response and handle it accordingly. So now, once you did import requests, you have to pass the GitHub API URL, GitHub username. So API URL is https api.github.com. GitHub username is our DEVOPS-TECHSTACK, and token. This token right now we are making it visible here, but generally you can hide this and store as a Jenkins credential, so it will be safe. And then users to remove. Suppose I have a user named Sumant CHY11. This user has left the organization. I want to remove it. And how to confirm the collaborators? Here you can see I have a collaborator Sumant CHY11. This user I want to remove from my GitHub collaborator list because this person has left the organization. Now, first thing, you have to get the list of all the repository in your organization. So I'm using the def function to create a function, and function name I am giving get underscore repository, closing the bracket, colon. Now in the URL, I am passing f. This f keyword means format a string. Means this URL is a variable only where you are passing in the quotes the value of API URL. But GitHub username, you are placing it in curly braces and you want to replace it with the actual username like DEVOPS-TECHSTACK. Then f string will help you to find, and wherever there are curly braces, it will not take it as a variable, but it will replace it with the actual value. So now URL will get exactly https:/api.github.com/users/DevOps-TECHSTACK/repos. Now, once you pass the URL, you have to get the response, like do the REST API call. So response is equal to request module dot get. Dot get is just as a select option, you can say, or to list it. And to get, you are passing the URL and you have to give the authentication. So authentication, you have the username and the token. Now, if your response for getting it is 200, then it will return the response.json file. So it will be a list of JSON content returned in a JSON file. Else, Suppose your authentication is not working or there are some problem with your GitHub API URL, then else function will tell fail to retrieve the repository, and it will show you the response code and response text as well, and then it will return. Now, suppose this task is done, means you can list the repositories, but what about collaborator? Because you have to list all the collaborator belonging to each of the repositories. So again, define a collaborator function and give it a input as a argument, that is the repository name. So in the URL variable, again fstring means to format the GitHub username and GitHub API URL here to get the actual value, and then the repo name. And where you will get the repo name? Repo name you have to pass, and then you have to pass the collaborators, and repo name you can get right here. When you will get all the repository lists, you will get the repo details here, right? So now you will get the collaborators. Now response is equal to request.get URL. You will pass the GitHub URL with the list of collaborators, and it will authenticate with the username and token. And if response is 200, then it will return you list of all the collaborators. Else it will tell that collaborators for particular repo is not available or there are some problem. Now you have a function to remove the user from particular repo. So you have to pass the repository name and the username, which user from which repository, and URL again GitHub API URL, GitHub username, repo name, and the actual username which you want to remove. And response you have to send this time, not get is just as a list, but to get the list of items, but delete function will help you to delete. So you are telling request.delete URL, authentication your username and token. So it will help you to replace particular username from as a collaborators. Now if response dot status code is 204, that means your username from this particular repo has been removed successfully. Else, if it is 404, that means this username is not found in particular repository name. Else, fail to remove username from repo name, and it will give you the response code and response text as well. Now, in the main function, you have to get list of all the repositories, right? So for getting the list of all repositories in the repo variable, I am calling get repository function. And if you go above, you have a get repository function. So this function is now getting called to return the list of all the repositories in the repo variable. And this variables we are using here, if you can see. And it will, if not repos, means no repository, or if it's not true, then no repository failed to retrieve, and it will return. Now for repos, in all the repositories you have to get repo name is equal to repo, and in the square bracket name. What is exactly this? So whenever you get the JSON response, it will have name and its value, name and value, name and value. So in the JSON, like you have key and value format, key and value. So from the key, you are getting the actual name. So in the repo name, you are getting each repo name and you are printing it. The repository name, you are printing it. Now, collaborators function, you are calling with your repository name. And if collaborators is true and found is equal to false, means you are initiating a found variable with the false value. And now you are telling for collaborator in collaborators. So if in collaborators, you will have again a JSON response. So you have to get the login as a key. Login, actual login you are printing here. So collaborator login, this accesses the login key from collaborators dictionary, which represents the username of the collaborator if collaborator username matches your user you want to remove. So now you are getting the login key, and you are writing a condition if collaborator login key is equal to actual user. Like in our case, it will be SUMANTCHY11. If it is same, then you are initiating the value of found to true. And if found is true, then removing access for user to remove from repo name. And then you are calling the function remove user from repo, and you are passing the repository name and user to remove. Else you are telling no collaborators found and fail to remove or fail to retrieve. And in the final, you are calling the main functions inside this. So I hope this code you can understand on a high level. Now let us do this practically. So if I want to run this Python code, first you have seen the list of collaborators here, right? You have two collaborators, SUMANTCHY11 and YSWNT24. Now, if you have to remove, you can do Python 3 Python and then your code name remove user dot py. So what this will do, let us see. So right now code is running and it has been listing all the repositories which are available in our code, and then it will help us to, so you can see all these repositories which belongs, and it has found um, collaborators. Like in Prometheus Argo CD, we have S124, Sumant, and DEVOPS-TECHSTACK. Now it is printing, removing access for Sumant Choi from Prometheus Argo CD successfully removed. Now let us go to our UI. So previously it was this. Now let me refresh the page and check it. So now you see that user has gone. Suppose I want to remove this collaborator also. So just go here inside your code again, and in your code just replace this username with the new username. So, and now save the code and again go and rerun the code. So this time just clear the screen and again run this Python code, and let us see what happens. So it is listing all the repositories, and then collaborators also it will list. So here you see removing access for S124 from Prometheus Argo CD. Now go and refresh this page and you see here. So you see no collaborators are available now. So I hope this code has given you a great idea of automations in your organizations. And even as a project, you can show them to the interviewer as well that I have written a script which has helped me to automate the deletion of any collaborator who has left the organization. And if as a summary I explain this code, we have used a request module of Python, and then using the request module, we are using the GitHub API, and we are using request.get to list either collaborators or repositories, and request.delete to delete particular collaborator from there. So I hope on a high level you understood this code conceptually and practically as well. Please try to implement the same code in your organization or in your individual computer and see it's working or not. If there is some issue or trouble you are not able to run it, please drop a comment in our channel. That's it for today. Thank you so much guys for giving your valuable time.